more time before us. It's always a delight to interact with you on it. I want to also thank you for your prompt response to my inquiries over the last few weeks about the Payton City water problem that they're having down there with trichloroethylene gotten into their water system. My question still is, and I think we're working together to try to get some temporary equipment moved in there for air strippers to do that, and we want to continue that. But I still have the question, is that if you bathe in water that's contaminated with TCE, can it be absorbed into your skin? Do you have a problem with that over the next 120 days before the equipment is the final installation of the treatment facility? Could you get back to me on that? I don't expect you to have that answer offhand.
I would not want to give a scientific answer like that offhand either.
If you
but
could,
we will get back to you.
I'd appreciate that. I want to make sure that bathing and washing in dishwasher, that it's safe. The second question, I want to follow up on Shimkus's question that was rather interesting, that the lead in the pipelines, you've been very active. The EPA has been trying to force communities to remove the lead in its service lines. But we still have a problem with lead in our residential, because up until 1986, you were still allowed to use lead pipes in residentials and apartments. I'm curious to see whether or not, and maybe again you get back to me, which is, do we have a registry or an estimate, maybe just an estimate of the number of homes and apartments that could still contain lead? Could you get back to me on that?
I don't believe we do. We do not regulate the pipes inside the house.
I know you don't regulate, but there ought to be some place. If you don't have it, then maybe that's a role for Congress, that we need to have this to get a sense, because the children are spending more time in their home than they are in our schools and our daycare centers. So I'd like to understand a little bit about the dynamics of what that is. So if you could get back to me on that.
Absolutely. And one of the aspects of our proposed lead and copper rule is if the homeowner replaces the lead pipes in their home, the water system is required to also replace them, which is why we're going to get more.
Let me move on, because I've got two other quick questions I'm trying to get to. We have a refinery in our district, Ergon. It's the last and only remaining refinery we have in West Virginia. It's a small refinery, only 23,000 barrels a year that they create. And the Fourth Circuit ruled in favor of them receiving an exemption to be treated as a boutique refinery. But it was remanded back to the EPA, and you all denied that. You again turned them down with it. Now they're appealing. They want to appeal that. But I want to put this in perspective, because, Andrew, Mr. Wheeler, we have 6 hospitals have closed or threatening to close. 3 have already closed. 3 more are in bankruptcies. We've had 7 coal companies go into bankruptcies. Rural America is still hurting, and here we have now the last refinery, which creates jobs in West Virginia. And if we don't get that exemption, I don't know that they have a long-term future. So I'm concerned, especially since the 10th Circuit has now ruled that if you don't have an exemption, you'll never get an exemption, and they don't have the exemption right now. So is it fair? That's the operator. Is it fair, do you think, from the EPA, that if you take that nationally, that ruling, Ergon will never be able to be treated as a boutique small refinery? Keep it in mind, they have 23,000 barrels versus Marathon is one of at 300,000. This one size fits all that you're coming up with, I have a real problem with that. I'm hoping that somehow you don't, but let me hear from you. Are you open to considering giving them an exemption?
Well, I believe their issue in the past on receiving the exemption was the review by the Department of Energy that they didn't meet the financial disparity test that they did.
The Fourth Circuit agreed with them. You all didn't agree with them, so I'm just asking, because I'm running out of time, that you'll rethink that again.
I'd be happy to.
This is critical to the economic vibrancy of our area. When your hospitals and mines are closing down, don't shut down our refinery. The last question that I can just keep it open real quickly with it, is there anything in this budget to help us maintain our aging coal fleet? Coal-fired power plant fleet, we know the average age is in the 45 to close to 50 years old. Is there something in there that where we can address the new source review, something that might be able to sustain that so that we can maintain about a 25% mix?
It's not necessarily in the budget, but we are continuing to work on reforming the new source review program. I think in retrospect, looking back, I think you can safely say that the NSR program was weaponized to go after certain industries. And I think that's a misuse of that provision, because I think that we should always encourage any facility to add new pollution control equipment.
Thank you.
That
Time's expired. I yield back.
disincentivized adding new equipment.